Okay. You got the list? Who's everybody speaking? Who's emceeing?
Me
You.
and Richie.
You and Richie. Great. Great.
I gotta work on my
Great.
radio. Yeah, let us start. Thank you.
Okay. Just make sure you check it off since we're
Yeah. Good. Let's go.
Where are you, Rick?
I'm right here.
Send this thing away after the congressman for change.
It's my dog.
Inspiration. Does she speak to you?
She. I named this.
John.
Are you guys all ready? Good afternoon, everybody. One, to the 9/11 community, that cloud of uncertainty has been removed. What do you say? Tone it down? Too loud? Again, that cloud of uncertainty has been removed. I want to thank the House for voting to pass the James Zadroga Help and Compensation Act, which was attached to the omnibus this morning. We just heard that the Senate has approved and voted for this. Members of the Senate are on their way over here. But since our New York members have plans, we're going to let them speak and get it over with. But for me personally, while I'm glad and ecstatic for the 9/11 community, those back home, those around the country, you join everybody else with that cloud of uncertainty removed. For me, I take no joy and comfort knowing that this bill got passed today. There were too many people that suffered, too many people that died. Today, the bill didn't get passed. Today, I officially make this day, December 18th, 2015, Ray Pfeiffer Day. Ray can't be with us here today because Ray is dying from cancer. Ray was an instrumental part of this team, along with Deputy Chief Re-Authorization, the international firefighters, the UFA, the UFLA, the AFL-CIO, members of Congress, all the advocates, the IAVA, and everybody else. Just like on 9/11, we all came together. Didn't matter our religions, or our uniform or non-uniform, or the color of our skin. We all came together. Maybe we could take a lesson from today and go back to that horrific day, because something good did come out of that we all came together. And once again, a week before Christmas, we all came together. With that being said, this next speaker is, he's Elvis. He's a rock star. He's been a champion for the firefighters, and I call him a dear friend, Re-Authorization.
Richie.
Thank you, John. I traveled on a train this morning with my IAFF Local 94 colleague, Vice President Jim Slevin, New York City firefighters, standing right behind me. I represent IAFF Local 854 in New York City, and we also have our General President of the International Association of Firefighters, Harold Schaeferger, with us, and always an honor to be with that man in this room. I don't know how many press conferences today makes. It might be in the hundreds, going way back to the first time around. And I will be absolutely sincere in saying that I dreaded each and every one except for two. One was in 2010 when we passed this legislation the first time. And the second one is today. Today is truly an historic day. The first speaker that I want to introduce is a woman that has stood behind New York City firefighters and police officers throughout her legislative career before 9/11, and literally has been with us side by side from the moments that the buildings collapsed. She stood with us during that time, throughout the entire process, the weeks and the months that went on when we realized that something was wrong. We had members that were getting sick, and the pundits at the time had told us that, well, yeah, some people will get sick and cancers may arise in 10 or 20 years, and they started arising within a year. She stood there with us and began the fight to get this legislation passed. Our members are so thrilled and happy to have her on a team that they asked myself and my colleague Jim Slevin to ask her to wear the fire bunker coat of a New York City firefighter. The same piece of equipment that was worn by 343 members of our department that were murdered on that day. The same piece of equipment that was worn by another 120 members of our department that have died line of duty as a result of their service in the longest rescue and recovery operation in our nation's history. I can't begin to thank her enough. The debt will never be repaid, and I just clearly want to say thank you and introduce New York City Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney.
Richie, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I am so honored to have this uniform on. And earlier we absolutely vowed that we would never forget. Well, we turned that vow into a reality of a law with a very strong vote in the House today and in the Senate. And it was really one of the most tragic events in our history, but also the most successful rescue operation probably in our nation's history. And it certainly had the most effective grassroots workers that are here today that helped and worked so hard to help us pass this bill. And I particularly want to thank Ben Shavat and Susie Ballantyne, who head the Citizens Committee, and of course, John Stewart and Carol King, who were there, and John from the Feel Good. When I get depressed, I always call John because he's always determined that we're going to win and it's going to happen. And then all of my wonderful colleagues in government that were part of this, and Jerry Nadler and Frank Pallone and many others, Peter King and Donovan, have just been incredible. This was a bipartisan effort, if there ever was one, and we were united and determined. Today's vote sent a clear message that we will never forget. This vote was a historic milestone in the recovery of 9/11. It is a major bipartisan victory for the responders and survivors of 9/11. Congress voted 316 to 113 to pass the fully funded $8.1 billion Zadroga 9/11 health and compensation programs, which were included in the omnibus. The $3.5 billion World Trade Center health program is effectively permanent with a 75-year renewal. The $4.6 billion Victims' Compensation Fund is extended for another 5 years until 2021. It was 14 years ago that I first became concerned about the health effects and exposures of the toxins at Ground Zero. The government was saying it was fine, but people were getting sick. 11 years ago, I introduced the first 9/11 health and compensation bill, and have introduced numerous, maybe 20 different versions of the bill over the years. 5 years ago, in 2010, it became a public law, but the health program expired this year on October 1, and the compensation fund was set to expire next October. Today, we made the health program permanent. The deal is done. The Senate is next to vote, and our holiday wish has come true. We are so thrilled that our heroes and heroines will know that they have their health care over this holiday season. More than 72,000 are in the World Trade Center health program. More than 33,000 have been identified as being sick or injured directly related to 9/11. And many, over 4,000, have been diagnosed with cancers caused by their exposure to the toxins. On 9/11, we lost almost 3,000 people. On 9/12, the estimate was that we had lost 25,000 people. And the mayor said it's too many, people will be upset, so they reported 6,000. But every day, because of the rescue effort, we found more and more people. Since then, though, hundreds and over 1,000 have died because of 9/11 related illnesses. And to give one example, in our police officers, we had 94 police officers reportedly have died from 9/11 related illnesses. This is more than the number of police officers that died on 9/11. 110 firefighters have reportedly died from 9/11 related illnesses because of the toxic exposure. In every terrorist attack, there is a common thread, and unfortunately, terrorism is on our minds every day. The common thread is that the first responders are there first to help people. Today, the responders got what they deserved. These men and women who put the health, safety, and well-being of our nation and other people before their own health and safety will never again have to come to Washington to beg for basic health care. It's a national scandal that they had to do it in the first place. Together, we did the right thing for the first responders. America should be proud today. Our first responders were there for us, and now we have kept our word, and we will always be there for them. We are a united American country. We vowed we would never forget. Today, we turned that vow into a reality of a law, giving the health care and support that they so justly deserve, which should be their right. It took too long. Hard work pays off. It's an effort, and I thank everyone who's been part of this combined family effort to make this happen. Thank you.
12 years ago, I came to the Capitol for the first time, an angry man. And today, I'm going to leave the Capitol an angry man. And Abraham Lincoln once said, you could tell the greatness in a man by his anger.
You did say that.
With that being said, the man that has more Abraham Lincoln quotes than me, Jerry Nadler.
Thank you very much. I was very much afraid that after today I would have to be ashamed of my country. But instead we can be, to a great extent, proud of our country. We showed today, by the passage of this bill, that the United States will not leave our wounded on the battlefield, that we will, in the words of Abraham Lincoln, care for him who shall have borne the battle. But this was a long, long battle, and there are things we should remember so that we don't repeat them in future episodes. On September 11, 2001, 3,000 people were killed by the terrorists. Afterward, many thousands of people are sick and died for two reasons. One, because they got caught in the toxic plume because of the terrorism, and two, because their government lied to them. And the federal government and the government of the city of New York told them for months and years that the air was safe to breathe when we knew perfectly well it was not safe to breathe. I remember telling people, don't send your kids back to school, don't return to work on Wall Street, don't go down there, it is not safe. And the mayor was saying it was safe, and the head of EPA was saying it was safe. I fault nobody for working on the pile for the first 3 days when we thought there may be people still alive. But after that, it was a cleanup, not a rescue. And thousands of workers worked on that pile without proper respiratory, without respirators and without proper protection, because their government told them it was safe, and we knew it wasn't safe. We held hearings of the EPA, special investigator in February of 2002 that reached that obvious conclusion. And yet, for years, the government refused to admit that the sicknesses that were coming up were related to the toxins in the air. Every workers' compensation claim was opposed, and we were told it wasn't true. The heroes at Mount Sinai and others finally proved it was unfortunately true. So we have a debt to these people, a tremendous debt. Number one, to the first responders, the brave fire people and the cops who ran into the burning buildings, who we always talk about, and who worked afterward in toxic atmospheres. We also have a debt to the people in the neighborhood, the people who work there, who live there, who went to school there in unsafe conditions, and who got sick and are getting sick and dying because their government lied to them and told them it was safe when it wasn't. So we have a double moral burden. I hope we've learned, number one, that we must provide the health care, which we're finally doing, which we passed in 2010, and we're making permanent, for all practical purposes, permanent now, and we're going to compensate them from their injuries. But I also hope we learned that, God forbid, in future tragedies, Be honest with people. Don't tell them the air is safe when it's not. Don't have them work in toxic conditions except to save people's lives. So I'm very glad we're finally passing this bill. I thank all of my colleagues and all the uniformed services and the people who work so hard on this. It's been a long, long struggle, but again, I can finally say I'm proud of my country.
Great.
Let me tell you the difference between these two senators to my left. 2 days ago, I got a phone call from a young lady, and she goes, Mr. Feely, a United States Senator wants to speak to you. I said, put Chuck on the phone. Then yesterday, I got a phone call on my cell phone, and she's like, hey, John, how are you? I'm like, who's this? You know, the blonde lady from D.C. I'm like, who is this? And she's been a stalker for the last several years, but she's been a close personal friend, and she's been a champion, in the true sense of the word champion, and a giant amongst champions. You know, we get too much credit, but Senator Gillibrand and her staff with Brooke Jameson, who gets no credit, and everybody in that office. Hey, Brooke Jameson. You know, without this woman's guidance and leadership, I probably would have dropped more A-bombs than I should have. So, Kirsten Gillibrand.
Well, I want to thank everyone here. This is a very important moment for all of us because I really didn't see that it was possible. When we started doing this 5 years ago, I met with these first responders, and they said to me, Kirsten, you have to fix this. You have to do this. And I was a brand new senator, and I looked at them and I said, of course I'll fix it. Of course I'll do this. And when I left them and thought about it, I thought, how am I ever going to do this? How can I ever make this happen? And the only reason it's done today is because of every person standing here. Not one person who's behind me. We couldn't have done it without every single one of them. The first responders are extraordinary. These are men and women who risk everything for our families, for our communities, who do it day in, day out, often with very little reward. But they answered the call of duty on 9/11, and they stayed there. They never stopped answering the call of duty. And because of those horrible toxins, they are dying. Our friend Ray is in a hospital bed today. Because of their heroism, they made a difference for families who were looking for their loved ones, who then had to settle for remains. And they did it because they were doing the right thing. And this was a time when Congress was not doing the right thing. Congress didn't follow suit, didn't make sure they had health care, didn't make sure they had the resources they needed to protect themselves. And so these first responders didn't just sit down and say, oh, well, they came to Washington. And I promise you nothing ever happens here unless regular people stand up and demand it. It never works unless regular people demand it from their leaders. And these men and women did that week after week, month after month, year after year, for a decade.
You calling us regular?
Awesome. Extraordinary.
You have your prunes.
As John knows, as Richie and everyone else standing behind me knows, this has been a labor of love for them. And not one of them does it for themselves. Every single one of the people standing with me here today does it for the rest, does it for the others, the ones who can't make it, for their families, for their children. The last press conference Chuck and I had in New York on this, one of those had been lost. His 8-year-old son was there. Yeah, and Jack was the most persuasive advocate there. And he said, please don't let this happen to other people's dads. So today is a joyous moment for the people here, a day I didn't really believe could actually ever come. And it has, and there's many, many people to thank for it. But all my gratitude goes to the first responders. And I want to thank the members of Congress who led this fight, who wrote the bill, who listened, who did extraordinary work in the House and the Senate. Senator Schumer has been an extraordinary partner who has never let this go, never let it die, and never given up. And he's made a huge difference in making this happen, because without him, it wouldn't. The same is true with Bob Menendez and Cory Booker and every one of the House colleagues. Carolyn and Jerry and Pete, who wrote the bill, they've labored over this their whole lives. So thank you to everyone that's here today. Thank you to our first responders who made such a difference. This is my proudest day in Washington.
I can recall at many other press conferences as I made my plead that we could no longer bring our sick and dying members to Washington because it was embarrassing, it was humiliating, and it was life-threatening. And in light of the commentary regarding firefighter Ray Pfeiffer, who is now fighting for his life, that was the truth. And this is what this legislation was all about. I'm just a simple guy from Queens. I can't do a really good Brooklyn accent, but we in New York, we affectionately call Senator Schumer the closer. And we call him that because he has been a long time Washington legislator and has impeccable negotiating skills. But more importantly than that, the senator has always stood beside firefighters and police officers and other trade union workers, the very same people that toiled on that pile for 9 months and are now sick and dying. The very essence of what this legislation is all about. He's another man that a simple thank you is just not enough. But my union had a holiday party Wednesday night, and I can't tell you the exuberance on behalf of our members. Several of them that are sick, but at least were able to travel and attend. And they are so grateful for their senators. I hope that the entire country, every member of every state, feels the same way about both of their senators as we in New York do about us. We are truly, truly fortunate. So it's my honor to introduce Senator Chuck Schumer.
And look, I'd say to Richie, a Queens accent ain't Brooklyn, but it ain't too bad. It's pretty good. I too, it really is an emotional day in a lot of ways. First, I want to thank everybody here. Kirsten Gillibrand, who's been an amazing partner, and we were a 1-2 punch. She was indomitable, rounding up the members, getting all those signatures. If we weren't able to say we had 68 senators, 250 Congress members on this bill, wouldn't have happened. And I was able, fortunately, to use my position in the leadership to make sure at the end, closing hours, it didn't get pushed away, pushed aside. There are reasons, so many things, good things get pushed away. But together we made sure that no one could take their eye off this. Jerry, Carol, Peter, the other members, Carolyn, what did I say, Carol? Carol and Peter, they did an amazing job in the House. This was a great team. It showed no partisan boundaries, etc. But the people I think all of us want to thank most are the first responders. I told John Field, I guess I'm not going to see anymore. He said, oh, yes, you will. He will find a new cause. He was an amazing guy. And,
in Pennsylvania.
Right. What'd he say?
He said if you vote for Field.
Yeah, if you vote Field. Right. And there's a great seat in Wyoming that I hear he's moving to find, where he might actually have a chance to win. In any case, but the people, I do want to be serious about this. Here's how it worked. Whenever there was an intransigent senator or member, we would talk to them. But when somebody who had cancer and who was had rushed to the pile to defend his country or her country walked in that door, they couldn't resist. If the folks behind us hadn't walked the halls of Congress time and time and time again, this would not have happened. I saw them. I saw them melt. These people were New Yorkers, most of them. No BS. They just talked how they felt. And they told of their experience. And even in a place like this where skins get hardened, people couldn't resist. That's why we passed this bill. If they had just come down once or twice or 3 times, it might not have happened. But they were there like that. Kirsten and I were on the phone with Field picking, do you come down today or tomorrow? Week after week after week. And they, without any preparation, the day they were needed there, down they came. So they are amazing. And I want to say 2 more things. First, 3, about our firefighters. I talked to Ray Pfeiffer, who's in the hospital now. Just 2 weeks ago, he was down here. He symbolized what I'm talking about in his quiet, modest way. He didn't beg for help. He didn't even ask for help. He just said, here's what happened to me. People drew the conclusion. And we hope and pray that he'll be fine, because he is one of the finest men that I have met as I go through politics. And second, I want to talk about our system. Our system's broken. We know that. But it can rise to the occasion. Now, you can say if it couldn't rise to this occasion, it wouldn't rise to any. And it sure took too darn long to get this done. It sure was too much like a roller coaster when it should have been a stroll in the park, because the cause was so good. But the system did finally work. And I hope this is a metaphor for other things working. For the House and Senate, for Democrats and Republicans to come together, not let partisan differences get in the way. Especially, we have a lot of good causes where there shouldn't be partisan differences, this above all. So let the saga of Zadroga be a metaphor, be a lesson for senators and congressmen in the future so we can get other good things done. And finally, Christmas season. Just think of those families who were worried. What happens if our breadwinner comes down with one of these cancers because he was on the pile? This Christmas, different than last Christmas, they're going to know whether that first responder comes down with cancer, God forbid, tomorrow or 20 years from now, that there will be help, the best help. There could be no better Christmas present, not only for the first responders and their families, but for these United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
She's going to do clerk, you do P
Yeah.
next.
I want to thank Senator Schumer again. Obviously, we have such an extraordinary champion in him, and this couldn't have been done without him. Another extraordinary champion who this couldn't have been done without is Mark Kirk. And I'll tell you, the first time we passed this bill, we had one Republican sponsor in the Senate. It was Mark Kirk. This year, we have 69 co-sponsors because Mark Kirk stood strong, led the charge, and really spoke to his colleagues and said, this isn't a partisan issue. This isn't about Democrat or Republican. This is about doing the right thing. This is about honoring the people who answered the call of duty and for Congress to do the right thing by them. He's never wavered. He's an extraordinary advocate, and we are so grateful for his leadership. Mark Kirk.
I signed on to this bill. I came to this press conference to say one thing. This bill is happening because of one human being, and her name is Kirsten Gillibrand, who had made it all happen. And John Stewart, who's somewhere above us in the ether here. I came on board because it was the right thing to do. There was no partisan difference. As a Republican, I wanted to say that for the over 270 first responders who worked on the pile that live in Illinois, like Art Noonan, who right now is facing leukemia. And this is a great Christmas present for Art. The right thing to do, just because New York sent the right person to represent in the Senate. Very, very good. Wanted to say it was the right thing to do, and as the lone Republican part of Kirsten's totally excellent army, to get this done. to make sure that if you saw that national tragedy of the 9/11 attack and with the buildings coming down and you came to work on the pile, sometimes driving the 720 miles from Illinois to the pile. And if you got sick, we should stand behind you because you stood behind us. My thoughts go out. This is a huge career maker for Kirsten. I'll tell you, as someone who sat there watching her buttonholing senator after senator, there's only one reason where we're standing here is because she just would not let go. Because, you know, this was the right cause at the right time for her.
Thank you, Mike.
That's the, you know.
God bless you.
Thanks, everybody.
I have no problem with that, so we're all on the same side.
If this wasn't such a serious occasion, I would take the opportunity to tease the next speaker as he teases me many times. But there's probably in New York no more well-loved member of Congress by police officers and firefighters. He comes from a police family, so on the fire side, we don't hold that against him. Most of us took both tests, so it was a matter of who called first, and that's where you would go. But such as Congresswoman Maloney, who has always been a loyal friend of ours way before 9/11, the same can be said for Congressman Peter King, who again also was with us from the moments after the collapse through that entire time period, and was always there from the beginning with Congresswoman Maloney, with Congressman Nadler, pushing things through on the House side. One of the great things about being a member of the International Association of Firefighters is that we have friends on both sides of the aisle. We have no party favorites. All we care about is where do you stand on the important issues. And on this, bar none, no one felt as passionately about it than Peter King, who worked his party to the bone and held everybody to task. And probably the only people that are happier today than him is his staff, because it's true. They worked tirelessly. They were always there. A phone call, always answered, and always taken care of. So he's another man that speaking for the firefighters, that we can never repay that debt. He's a true friend, and we're lucky to have him. I'm so honored to introduce Congressman Peter King.
Thank you. Thank you, Rich. After that wonderful introduction, I hate to say this, but my father must be turning over in his grave, seeing me standing with you firefighters. But in any event.
See what I mean?
No, very seriously, it's really an honor to be here today with all of you. Rich, thank you for your kind words. Thank all of the cops, the firefighters, the building trades workers, those who put their lives and their health on the line. Let me thank Chuck and Kirsten in the Senate, come from New York. They were such great, were and are such great fighters for us. In the House, I've seen more of Carol Maloney and Jerry Nadler over the last 14 years than I ever thought I'd see any two people in my life. But they are there. They work. They are, again, there was never even an ounce of partisanship. And believe me, there are opportunities where they could have taken some partisan shots but never did. They always saw the greater cause was to make sure that the men and women of 9/11 got the health care they deserved. I want to thank Dan Donovan, who's only been in the House now 6 or 7 months. He says, I was here for 14 years, nothing got done. Donovan shows up, and the bill passes. So, what can I tell you? But seriously, this is a great victory for the American people. It's a great victory for those, again, who made the tremendous sacrifice. Some made the ultimate sacrifice. Some, like Ray Pfeiffer, are putting themselves really at the verge of death because of the concern, the dedication that they had. And so, again, I can't thank all of you enough. This was a long, hard fight. John Field has been here all the time. Ben Shavat, Jamie on my staff. She actually did so much of the work. I want to thank her. There she is back there. You can applaud for that. And in the middle of all, she got married and kept going, so I want to thank Jamie for the great job she did. We got all of you. Thank you so much. It's a great victory for you. It's a great victory for America. It's a great victory for American principles and ideals. Thank you all, and God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, you've heard a lot of elected officials speak now, and I said it last week. I'll say it again. This was our story to tell, and this was our ending to finish, and they just helped narrate it. And we thank the media for helping narrate that story. We thank Jon Stewart for helping narrate that story, and we thank the Senate and the House for narrating that story. But don't let anybody fool you. On 9/11, we were the ones at ground zero, and that was where our story began. And today, we wrote our own ending. I don't care who voted against, who voted for, but it was our story to tell. And in 20 years from now, they're never going to remember our names. They're never going to remember our words. But they're going to remember a hardcore, front line of defense, ass-kicking group of 9/11 responders came together. Came together. Don't make me run against you. Came together to get this bill done. And we did not see Democrats and we did not see Republicans. Everybody got this misconception that field goes after Republicans. Ask the Democrats who I went after yesterday. Ask Frank Pallone, who I went after a few years ago, who I think is one of the greatest guys I ever met. When we're dealing with human life, your title does not matter. You have a responsibility to help those less fortunate. And one of those people that have done that has been Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I am especially moved today because as someone who introduced the first Zadroga bill back in 2010, I thought we had a fight that we should have never had to have, and that took too long then. And Jim Zadroga, who this bill is named after, was a New York City police officer, but who was a New Jerseyan. And I'm sure he and the others who gave their lives are looking down upon us today and admiring the great work of all of the men and women who have led this fight to this moment. On that day that changed the world, these men and women showed incredible courage and sacrifice without regard to their own well-being. And while we thought we were fighting an enemy that attacked us, there was an enemy beneath the pile of rubber that no one really knew. And nonetheless, they responded to it. I have often said, I said last week on the Senate floor, that it would be outrageous if the Congress were to go for the holidays without permanently reauthorizing the Zadroga law. And I said that a grateful nation not only shows its gratitude at a September 11th commemoration, which we should, to never forget, but a grateful nation shows their gratitude to those men and women who responded on that fateful day, not by just simply taking a picture with them on a September 11th commemoration, but how we take care of their health care, how we take care of their disabilities, and how we take care of their families for those who ultimately committed the ultimate sacrifice. That's what we are doing today as a grateful nation. It is something that we should have done all along. But I am glad that we have concluded today in a way that sends a very clear message to all of those first responders on September 11th and all of those first responders tomorrow, God forbid, that when you show that courage and that self-sacrifice and you have our back, we're going to have your back, because that's how a grateful nation ultimately responds. Thanks so much.
You know, I don't know the next speaker as much as I know Senator Gillibrand and Schumer, but I know he's a good man, and I've seen his work, and I appreciate his work, and I appreciate that he stood up for 9/11 responders. And listen, I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent or a Martian. You want to help 9/11 responders? You got my support. Cory Booker.
So I hate to put it this way, but there was a cloud of shame hanging over Congress, hanging over Washington for too darn long. A real shameful, ignominious reality that we would not do the right thing. Today, we've reclaimed some pride. We've showed what this country's about. We put our values forward, that we take care of our own. This is a good day for America, and I'm grateful. And finally, I just want to say that of my fellow members, I have tremendous respect for what I saw going on the Senate floor. I was happy to contribute to this, but truly, the leader of the Senate on this issue was Kirsten Gillibrand. She got this over the line. I'm just so in awe of her tenacity on this issue, and I want to thank her personally and publicly right now. Thank you.
In the New York City Fire Department, when you get appointed, you're a probationary firefighter. We use the term probie. So this congressman basically is still a probie in our book. Normal people, though, when they start a new position, basically ease in and get the lay of the land and then start making an impact. This man basically got off the train, got sworn in, and his first act before he even knew how to do it was to sign on as a co-sponsor to the legislation, and then continued to work extremely hard on his side of the aisle. The ball was literally on the 10-yard line, and both him and his staff plunged in with both feet and worked tirelessly and helped get us to the point of this celebration. So again, in New York, we're very, very fortunate to have a new congressman named Dan Donovan. Thank you.
Richie, thank you. Thank you very, very much. I had a wonderful job. I was the district attorney of Staten Island for 12 years. I used to go home every night. Now I don't go home every night. I used to run every 4 years. Now I have to run every 2 years. And I took a salary cut to become a congressman. People said, why did you do it? What was your ambition? What did you want to do when you went to Congress? This was it. In the 11th Congressional District of New York, of the 435 congressional districts, I have the most people in the registration for the 9/11 Health Care Fund. 6,700 of the people I represent are in that fund. I came down here and promised those people I would advocate. On September 11th of 2001, they answered their nation's call. They rescued people, they recovered people's remains, and then they cleaned up the site. There were firefighters, police officers, construction workers, volunteers, retirees. They answered their nation's call. Today, their nation answered their call. I want to thank all my colleagues, some of which I never knew before I got here. Many of these people I have found are incredible, incredible public servants. And what we did, and I have to thank the leadership in the House, Paul Ryan, Chairman Goodlatte, Chairman Upton. When we started this fight, they were proposing a 5-year extension of the health care fund. Myself, P. King, and my colleagues here told them 5 years just isn't enough. It has to be forever. Today, we passed a bill in both houses that gives certainty that we will provide health care for those rescue workers forever. I have to thank John Farrell from my office, who worked with Jamie from Pete's office and Kirsten's office and Senator Schumer's office. They worked tirelessly. They're going to be able to empty their mailboxes. There's Zadroga mailboxes now with thousands of emails that went back and forth until we got to where we are today. Thank you to all of them for all their hard work. Thank you for the advocates who came down every week, and we never got tired of seeing you. We'll miss you, but we never got tired of seeing you. It was your advocacy that gave us the inspiration to go to our leadership and say, we need to get this done, and we did. Thank you so very, very much.
You know, before you got here, we started without you. I know. I try to fight it. But I said, today, maybe you can help with this, that we should make this December 18, 2015, Ray Pfeiffer Day. And I think maybe you guys can all get together and sign something for Ray Pfeiffer. Just thinking. Republicans and Democrats coming together for Ray Pfeiffer. Be beautiful, no? Just throwing it out there.
I'm doing a floor speech for him, and we'll get that signed.
Nice. So going back to what I reiterated before, it's not just Republicans I went after, because I went after this man pretty good back in 2009 and 10, and I apologized several times over. I promised him always law for life. He's a great man. He's a great congressman, and you know, New Jersey is the second most populated state with 9/11 responders, and Congressman Pallone has made sure that World Trade Center health program in New Jersey has been one of the top clinics in the country. So without any further ado, Congressman Frank Pallone.
Thank you, John. There's so many reasons to be happy and to celebrate today, but I think that John was sort of getting to it when, from my perspective, and that is that on Monday, I'm going to go to the clinic that we have in New Jersey at Rutgers in my district. And every time I go there, I'm always concerned that I have to say, well, I don't know whether the money's going to be there, not only to treat the 9/11 responders and the patients, but also for the researchers. You know, there are researchers that actually do this research because we keep finding diseases and combination of diseases that are impacting 9/11 responders that didn't exist before or didn't exist to this degree before. And they're also worried as well about whether they're going to have be there for another year and be able to continue their research as well as the treatment. So the best thing for me is that I can go to Piscataway at Rutgers on Monday, and I can go there and I can say to not only those who are using the clinic for treatment, but also those who are working there and doing research and the doctors and the nurses, and say that we finally have a bill that's passed that's going to make this program permanent. That's the problem. When we were hearing about a 5-year extension or even a 10-year extension, it's not good enough. And I can't estimate enough how important it is that we actually did this permanently today. That is really crucial for all these people that are using the clinics, that are working at the clinics, that they know now that they have our backing to continue what they're doing for the next 70 or whatever years. I want to thank everybody, but I have to just say, look, on the House side, there's one person, and I'm going to say, I know she's already been, people have said it, but you know, this woman, Carolyn, she's been wearing this jacket, you guys know, almost every day for the last few weeks. And the reason she wore it is because when she would come into the caucus or she would come into the WIP meeting, she reminded everybody by wearing this jacket and with what she was doing walking around the room how important it was to pass this bill. And I just want to thank Carolyn, because it's really true that without her efforts, we would not be where we are today. Thank you, Carolyn.
I think most people, if they had to introduce their boss, would look at it with trepidation. I don't. It's actually quite an easy gig because he's a labor icon. I'm speaking about a man who has dedicated his entire adult life not only to the fire service, but to the broader labor movement. He represents a union of over 340,000 firefighters across North America. So he has a very difficult job and makes very difficult decisions. And over 2 years ago, when we realized that we were going to have to begin the journey to lobby to get this legislation reauthorized, and knowing the huge amount of money that was going to cost. And why did it cost so much money? Because, as Tip O'Neill would say, all politics are local. So we not only could bring people from New York and New Jersey and Florida, close by, down to Washington, we had to bring union representatives from the IAFF and their sick and dying members to Washington. Countless times. I can't tell you, and I really don't want to know the bill, but I can't tell you the thousands and thousands of dollars that effort took. So he basically took all of his chips at the gambling table and moved them up. An extraordinary decision. He has the responsibility of making that fiduciary decision. And we are so grateful and we are so honored to have Harold Schaeberger, president of the International Association of Firefighters, standing with us today, and his leadership will go down in the history of the fire service as a truly, truly remarkable man.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Listen, a lot's been said, and I don't know that I could really add to the extraordinary and profound comments and remembrances about the incredible service. So I'm simply going to take my moment to say a couple of thank yous. First, I want to thank the members, the workers that made the initial response on that horrific day. In Lower Manhattan, across the river at the Pentagon, without regard to their own safety, they did exactly what they were charged to do the best they could to save lives. A lot of time is spent on the horrific loss with a general population and 343 of our own. But I want to make sure to thank those that responded that day because of the tens of thousands that were rescued from those buildings before they came crashing down. I want to thank the workers from across a broad labor movement, iron workers, carpenters, laborers, the building trades, the electricians, everybody who came together over the course of those days, weeks, and months during rescue, recovery, and then cleanup, never really fully regarding what they were facing. I want to thank the thousands of our members who came from across the United States to come here to meet with their representatives and to make sure they understood that as critically important as this was to one of the greatest, if not the greatest city in the world, that this affected workers in 433 of 435 congressional districts in every single state. And then I want to thank the unbelievable leadership of a Congress during a period of time. I've been at this now for about 38 years. And this is a difficult time to get things done. I mentioned the last time we came together, there's a lot of rules, there's a lot of conflict, there's a lot of machinations. It isn't easy, it's not a straight line. But when you have leadership like Senator Gillibrand and Senator Schumer, when you have leadership like Carolyn Maloney and Peter King and Jerry Nadler, when you have the support of the members of the Senate delegation, Bob Menendez and Senator Kurt, and the House on both sides of the political aisle with Congressman Pallone and Donovan, and all of those who really came together, all I can do is be so proud of their work and say thank you. You've made a difference in the lives of families. You're making a difference of those that are surviving, struggling to survive. I think it is a proud moment for our country. It really shows what a great nation can do when everyone comes together. And so on behalf of every IFF member, and I will take the opportunity on behalf of all workers that made those extraordinary sacrifices, this day is here, and we thank you so very much.
You know, I'm going to miss a lot of you people, but I am not going to miss these press conferences. These things are long. You know, a few.
Who else add to that?
Yeah, you're right. A few months ago, the IAVA, they joined us in this fight, and it made a difference. 460,000 plus IAV members took to the internet to help us. Then they joined us with boots on the ground. And as a veteran of the United States Army, I can't be even more prouder than I am now to introduce Matt Miller, the Chief Policy Officer of the IAVA.
Thanks, Sean. Before I begin remarks, I'd like to, his name has been mentioned, Ray Pfeiffer. Wanted to see if we could, at the count of three, just give a thumbs up, maybe get a picture that he may be able to see immediately. So if we could do that on the count of three. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Tweet it. And that's for,
back, Ray.
that's for you, Ray. What a day it is here. I'd like to begin by thanking the members of Congress, both in the House and Senate, first responders, countless individuals that made the Zadroga Act their mission. This day has been too long in coming, but it's here nonetheless. It wasn't always pretty, but in the box score at the end of the day, it will be a win. It's ironic that Congress began this year by putting aside partisan differences and passing the Clay Hunt SAVE Act, which dealt with the fact that the horrific number that 22 veterans a day commit suicide. Congress put its partisan differences aside and passed that law. And here we stand today in Congress's closing hours. Again, partisan differences are put aside and we pass the Zadroga Act, benefiting first responders and countless veterans. Keeping with the season, yes, Virginia, there is bipartisanship. We hear words like determination, dedication, passion, and heroes thrown around loosely and used to describe sports figures and entertainment stars. Yet every one of these could be used to describe those who fought to make a permanent extension of the Zadroga Act today. You are the ones society needs to look up to for inspiration. Every one of you. House and Senate patches of this historic legislation means that thousands of families will be given some peace of mind and hope as they gather to celebrate the holidays. This truly is providing the gift of life. IAVA is proud to have played a small part in the success of today, but I'm even prouder to stand here, arm in arm, in the company of heroes. Thank you.
I believe that was our last speaker, and we'll take questions on topic.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here.
That's a
Thank you.
Harold, we got to get a picture with you with Harold.
Oh, yes.
Aaron?
We're gonna get a
I don't think the security's very tight in this joint.
Hey! Look at there.
Doesn't let anybody in here.